Welcome to the Deep Dive. Really glad you could join us.
Great to be here.
So you've tuned in because you're ready to explore something, well, pretty significant. And this time, we've noticed a lot of you shared sources about the work of Brené Brown.
Ah, yes, Brené Brown. It's a fantastic choice, actually. Her work resonates so deeply with so many people.
It really does.
She's, a researcher, professor, author, really dug into vulnerability, courage, shame, empathy. And honestly, she's fundamentally shifted how we think about these things. It's been quite a transformation.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, our mission, if you will, is pretty focused. We want to pull out the real core wisdom from the materials you sent us on Brené Brown, specifically looking at her kind of groundbreaking view on vulnerability. We're going to unpack this idea that being authentic, open, embracing our imperfections, that's not weakness.
Not at all.
It's actually a source of incredible strength. So let me just ask you listening. Have you ever stopped to consider that showing your genuine self, flaws and all, could actually be your greatest asset, your greatest power even?
That really is the central question, isn't it? And it's one Brené Brown has spent, over 2 decades trying to understand.
Yeah, the commitment is amazing.
Her work, like you said, it directly challenges that old ingrained belief that vulnerability is something bad, something to hide.
Right. Avoid it at all costs.
Exactly. And what's fascinating, thinking about the sources, is how her research journey even started. She didn't initially set out to study vulnerability, did she?
No, that's right. She was looking into shame, wasn't she?
She was studying shame and sort of stumbled onto this profound connection with vulnerability, almost by accident, you could say.
And what really struck me, reading through everything, was just the sheer depth of it. 20 years, you said. 20 years immersed in understanding these really core human emotions. Shame, courage, vulnerability.
Yeah.
This isn't just like abstract theory floating around.
Yeah.
It feels really grounded in actual human experience.
Oh, absolutely. Her research is deeply rooted in qualitative data. We're talking tens of thousands of interviews.
Wow.
Yeah, all meticulously analyzed to understand people's actual lived experiences. And what kept popping up again and again was this initial idea people had. Vulnerability equals weakness.
Common perception.
The common perception. But then as she dug deeper, the data just revealed a totally different picture. The people who actually leaned into their vulnerability, they were the ones reporting richer lives, more meaning, more connection. So this societal pressure, this conditioning that tells us, hide your flaws, look perfect, it actually creates this huge barrier.
A barrier to connection.
Exactly. A barrier to authentic connection and, frankly, to personal growth. And that's the barrier her work really tries to dismantle.
Okay, so here's where, for me, it gets really interesting. Because, having the research is one thing, but having it strike such a massive chord with people globally, that's another level. And that TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, what is it now? Over 50 million views.
It's incredible, isn't it?
What was it about that talk? Why do you think it just resonated so deeply?
Well, I think it was the sheer honesty, the raw honesty combined with her own story.
Yeah, she shared her own struggles.
Right. She wasn't just up there presenting dry academic findings. She bravely shared her own issues with vulnerability, how embracing it changed her relationships, her life. And that experience is just so universally relatable, isn't it? We all, on some level, have those fears. Fear of judgment, fear of exposure.
Totally. And it wasn't just individuals connecting with her, right?
Yeah.
The sources mentioned her work with huge organizations, Google, for example. How did this idea translate into the professional world, which can be, let's be honest, pretty guarded?
That's such a critical point. Because Brown essentially showed leaders that if you create environments where people feel safe enough to be vulnerable.
Safe enough to, admit mistakes, share challenges.
Exactly. To openly admit mistakes, share challenges without fear, that actually builds deeper trust. It builds stronger collaboration. Think about it. If everyone's spending all their energy trying to look perfect, totally flawless.
Yeah, that takes a lot of energy.
It does. And they're far less likely to take necessary risks, Less likely to innovate, less likely to really connect with their teams on a human level. This isn't just about being nice either. Empathetic leadership, the kind that allows for vulnerability, has been shown to boost engagement, reduce turnover.
So it impacts the bottom line.
Directly impacts the bottom line.
Okay, let's maybe unpack one of the key lessons highlighted in the materials. Dare to be seen. What does that really mean in the context of her work?
At its core, dare to be seen means allowing yourself to be truly visible.
Warts and all.
Warts and all, exactly. Imperfections included. It's
Yeah.
about finding the courage to show up authentically, even when you know there's a risk. Risk of criticism, maybe even rejection. And Brown really emphasizes how vital it is to talk openly about failures, about struggles, because it's right there in those moments that real human connection is forged. What jumps out at you about that idea?
Well, for me, it's this powerful realization that hiding our flaws, what we think are flaws, it actually blocks connection. We end up just showing this polished version, right?
Yeah.
And it might feel safer for a bit, but it keeps people at arm's length. It's like saying, you can see this surface, but the real me, that's off limits.
Exactly. And that idea flows right into the second key lesson mentioned, empathy perfection.
Okay, empathy over perfection.
Yeah. This really challenges that traditional, maybe outdated leadership model, the one that equated strength with, appearing totally infallible, never showing weakness.
Right, the leader has to have all the answers, never admit they don't know something. Brown just flips that whole idea on its head, doesn't she?
Completely flips it. Her research strongly suggests that leaders who actually prioritize listening,
Really listening.
actively listening to their teams, trying to genuinely understand where they're coming from, offering support when things get tough, those leaders are demonstrably more effective, way more successful long term. Empathy, in her framework, it creates the sense of psychological safety. That's the term she uses. An environment where people feel okay taking risks, being themselves.
Psychological safety.
That makes sense?
Have you seen examples of that? Leaders who embody that empathetic approach?
Oh, absolutely. I can
Wow.
immediately think of leaders who weren't afraid to say, I don't know, or, share their own learning process, their own mistakes sometimes.
And what was the impact?
Without fail, those were the leaders who built the most trust, the most loyalty, the most real engagement from their teams. But, okay, this naturally leads us to the debate that some of the materials brought up.
Yes.
Is embracing vulnerability truly a strength? Or does it just carry too many risks? It's a totally valid concern. It really is. And it's one many people grapple with. Alex's perspective in that summary saying vulnerability is absolutely essential for connection and trust that really captures Brown's core argument.
But then Sam raises a really important counterpoint, doesn't he? Isn't putting yourself out there, choosing to be vulnerable, isn't that inherently risky? Doesn't it open you up to judgment, to failure, maybe even exploitation by others? Where's the line?
That really is the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a very real perceived risk, and it's natural to feel hesitant. However, Brown's research actually suggests the greater risk lies in actively avoiding vulnerability.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, when we constantly armor up emotionally, maybe we shield ourselves from some criticism in the moment, but we also block ourselves off from real connection, from opportunities for growth, both personal and professional, and we block ourselves off from the courage that actually comes from facing those fears. The resolution offered in the materials really nails it. Courage, shown through vulnerability, is the key.
The key to authentic leadership and relationships.
Exactly.
So it's not about just, spilling your guts to everyone or oversharing inappropriately.
No, definitely not.
It's more about consciously cultivating the courage to be open and honest, but in the right contexts, with discernment.
Precisely. It's nuanced. It's an ongoing balancing act, really. Now, speaking of nuance, let's dive into some of that key vocabulary highlighted in the materials you shared.
Okay.
The first word is wholehearted, which, interestingly, is often translated as auténtico in Spanish. Can you tell us a bit more about how Brown uses that specific term?
Yeah, wholehearted. It's described really powerfully as living fully and sincerely, embracing all aspects of yourself, the good stuff, the messy stuff, the imperfections. It's about trying to live in a way that aligns your inner values with your outward actions. So instead of trying to project some fake image, you wholeheartedly embrace your true self, all its complexities.
Beautifully put. And that idea of living wholeheartedly is completely tied to vulnerability, isn't it? Well, choosing to live wholeheartedly basically requires us to drop the mask, to drop that heavy facade of trying to be perfect.
Right.
And instead, allow ourselves to be genuinely seen by others just as we are. The example given, live a wholehearted life, it's short, but it's a powerful call to action, really.
It is. Okay, the second key word, shame, or vergüenza. Brown's work has really reshaped how we understand this often quite debilitating emotion.
Hugely.
Yeah. Shame is defined here as that really intense, painful feeling of inadequacy, that deep down belief that we're somehow fundamentally flawed, not good enough.
That raw feeling.
And one of Brown's biggest findings here, highlighted in the materials, is that shame thrives in silence, in secrecy.
Yes, the more we try to hide it, the stronger it gets.
I feel like it gains power in the dark.
That's a great way to put it. And what's fascinating is how vulnerability acts as the antidote.
The antidote to shame.
Exactly. When we find the courage to talk about our shame, bring it out of the shadows.
Share it.
Share it with someone who can offer empathy, understanding. It starts to lose its grip. It's in that connection, that shared experience, that shame begins to dissipate. It loses its isolating power.
That makes so much sense. Keeping it locked away just lets it fester.
Hmm.
Now, the materials also included a direct call to action aimed right at you listening. It encourages you to share a struggle with someone today. Why is that simple act considered so significant, so potentially transformative?
Because it's vulnerability in action, right here, right now.
Okay.
It's taking these core principles from her research and actually applying them in your own life. By choosing to be open about a challenge you're facing, you're not just opening the door to maybe get support or different perspectives.
Right, which is valuable in itself.
Absolutely. But you're also creating a powerful opportunity for deeper connection. You're signaling to the other person through your own courage that it's okay to be imperfect, that struggles are just part of being human, a shared part.
Yeah, it can be surprisingly powerful, Candid, that small act. And the quote from Brené Brown included is also really thought-provoking. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation.
Ooh, that's a big one.
What are your immediate thoughts on that connection she draws there? Innovation from vulnerability.
It's profound, really. Think about it. Real innovation requires experimentation, right?
Yeah, trying new things.
Taking calculated risks. And often dealing with setbacks, maybe even outright failures along the way.
True.
Now, if you're in an environment, professional or personal, where vulnerability is seen as weakness, people are just going to be less likely to take those risks.
They'll play it safe.
They'll play it safe. They won't want to admit something isn't working or learn from mistakes openly. But when vulnerability is actually embraced, fostered, it creates that psychological safety we talked about. People feel empowered to be creative, to think outside the box, to push boundaries. That's where the breakthroughs happen.
Okay, wow. So as we start to wrap up this honestly incredibly insightful deep dive into Brené Brown's work, let's just quickly hit that core takeaway again.
Let's do it.
Her research, overwhelmingly, it demonstrates that vulnerability is absolutely not a weakness to run away from.
Not at all.
It's actually a fundamental, essential source of strength, of real human connection, and crucial growth, both personally and professionally.
Couldn't agree more. And for you listening right now, there are some really key practical lessons to think about integrating into your life.
Like what?
Well, first, the importance of daring to be seen, really embracing your imperfections as the actual path to forging genuine connections. Remember how she encourages sharing failures and challenges?
Yeah.
It's through those shared experiences we really connect on that deeper human level.
And in leadership, that principle, empathy, perfection, that's crucial. Leaders who actually listen, understand, offer support.
Yeah.
They build the strongest, most effective teams, period.
We also touched on that debate, didn't we? That understandable tension between the perceived risks of vulnerability and how necessary it is for trust and connection.
Right.
Ultimately, Brown's work strongly suggests that real courage, shown through authentic vulnerability, is the absolute cornerstone, both for leadership and for fulfilling personal relationships.
Okay, and let's quickly revisit those two vocabulary words. Wholehearted.
Living authentically, embracing all of who you are.
Strengths and weaknesses, and shame.
That painful feeling of inadequacy that paradoxically loses its power when we talk about it.
Right. Which brings us back to that call to action.
Exactly. Seriously consider it. Reach out. Share a current struggle with someone you trust today. It's a tangible way to feel the power of vulnerability yourself.
And keep that Brené Brown quote in mind. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation. It really makes you think about where big ideas actually come from.
Which leads to some important questions for you, the listener, to maybe reflect on. How do you currently handle those feelings of shame or vulnerability when they pop up in your life? What are your usual strategies?
And what does it really mean to you in your own life to be wholehearted? What would that actually look like, feel like?
And finally, maybe consider this. How might consciously embracing vulnerability, even in small ways, enhance your own approach to leadership? Or maybe just deepen the quality of your relationships?
Yeah. Ultimately, Brené Brown's work just powerfully highlights this transformative potential of being authentic, of finding strength in vulnerability. It really feels like it unlocks our potential.
It really does. So as you go about your day, maybe carry this final thought with you. How might shifting your perspective on vulnerability unlock totally new levels of connection and courage in your own life? And what might that make possible for you?